Car behind you there.
Oh, that's a race car.
Yeah. Here's a question. Can that race car beat me in my Tesla? 0 to 60 in 3.2. Can that beat my Tesla?
Peter Saddington, your big game hunter. And guys, we have our sights on someone special today.
Only a mother could invest in
this idea.
Made this like super artistic.
That is actually absolutely correct. And that's a very, very astute assessment, actually.
True startup story, guys. You got it. Your company just got seed round financed. Congratulations. You're going to the moon. But now you have to scale. You found great talent out in California, New York, Georgia, and even Eastern Europe. So what communications platform will you be using to ensure your international team is always aligned? Well, the answer is easy. Slack.com for Teams. We've used Slack for all of our previous startups, and they've supported us in tremendous ways. And we want to give them a thanks today for supporting vchunting.com. Did you also know that Slack is a great tool for personal use? Yeah, I use my own personal Slack channel to drop in documents, notes, to-dos, and follow-ups to ensure that my workflow throughout the day is right on course. I promise you, if you try out slack.com for personal use, you'll end up using it for your team as well. Go to slack.com to check it out. Welcome everybody to season 2 of VC Hunting, one of the fastest growing venture media companies on the planet. We have today a wonderful guest, Tim Draper, the founder of DFJ Draper University, Draper Venture Network, public speaker, and author of several books, one of which I recently picked up, How to Be the Startup Hero, Guide and Textbook for Entrepreneurs. Tim Draper, thanks and welcome to the show.
Terrific. Thanks for picking up the book. I hope you read it. It's great fun.
I did. I love it. It was great.
Oh, terrific. Yeah. How to be the startup hero. I recommend it to everybody. It's because I wrote every word. I didn't do any of this ghost writing stuff. And I really enjoyed writing it. I wrote it on all these airplanes, and I wrote it on my iPad and my iPhone, both iPad and iPhone. And because I'd get in the airplane and that was all I could use at the beginning. So there's a half hour at the beginning of an airplane ride and a half hour at the end of the airplane ride. And then during the airplane ride, it was just an easier way to kind of spew out my stories. It was great. It was really fun.
Well,
and I edited it on the computer.
Well, I love the book. Obviously, we'll put some links below so everyone out there listening and watching can see it and check it out and read it. Now, Tim, I know that I've been seeing you around the Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency space, and I know you've been doing a lot of interviews there, so we'll save maybe some of those questions for later. But we here at VC Hunting, we do digging. We love to find the untold stories of venture capital. So as long as you're willing to play, we're going to ask you some fun questions.
Sure, go ahead, whatever you got.
According to Wikipedia, Tim, you are regarded as the most successful VC in the world and the most powerful and influential people in Silicon Valley. So here's the question.
Thank you, Wikipedia. I'm sure there are some people who would disagree, but
there's always going to be
Wikipedia. I appreciate those comments.
So here's the question. Tim Draper, if you had an evil twin, what would your evil twin do with such power?
You know what's great about this? This is really funny because I created Draper University of Heroes, and I talked to my son, and he said, you know, the villains in these comic books are really inventive. They really create some interesting things. Dr. Octopus, with all of his, moves humanity forward with what do you call that? Exoskeletons.
Right.
And the lizard is all about cloning and DNA, new DNA forms and all that. And I'm thinking, whoa, wait, are they heroes or are they villains? So I'm all about not sure which way it goes. In fact, some of the things that we're all the way you're supposed to think have been completely transformed by some great entrepreneur. Don't get in a car with strangers. This is also, I'm copying my son.
But we have Uber now.
And we have Uber. And don't let a stranger into your house. And we have Airbnb. I mean, all of a sudden, these businesses, these great entrepreneurs have basically systematically broken these fundamental rules that every parent tells every kid. And so, just being good and staying right in the lane, I think can be, I think you're actually being bad. Long term, you're being bad because you're not innovating, you're not trying new things, you're not pushing humanity forward. If you just sit back and talk about other people and all their things they do, that doesn't do humanity any really great.
It sounds like you're more like Batman, right? You're not the hero we need, but you're the hero we deserve, right? And right, and you're only the hero until you're the villain, right?
Right. Well, I like Batman and Iron Man the most because, I mean, I wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider and I didn't come from Krypton. So I feel like you create your own heroism. You build the suit, you invent things for your utility belt. And if you can't do it, you get other people to help you do that. So I think that there is, I like the heroes that are inventive and create new things. I actually like entrepreneurs even better than Batman or Iron Man because Batman and Iron Man created things for their own use to help crime fighting or whatever. I think that you want to create really interesting things for the use of everyone around the world.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like Tim
so
Draper.
There's something to being able to spread things with network effects and with, as I invented viral marketing, spreading things that way, I think is a really think in terms of, I'm going to invent something so everybody can do it.
It sounds good. Well, it sounds like if you had an evil twin, he'd be inventing all the things to create different normalization experiences and invite people into your cars, invite people into your houses. Well, let's pivot a little bit here. We do a lot of digging, so we like to keep venture capitalists accountable. I found something interesting about you, Tim Draper. On September 1st, 2009, September 1st, 2009, your second tweet ever, you said you promoted Valley Girl YouTube channel of Jesse Draper. What happened to that show?
That's the greatest show. It was so good. My daughter created this amazing show where she got people to do the funniest thing. She had Elon Musk shoot off a bottle rocket and eat escargot because it was the S car.
Yeah.
She got Vinod Khosla to paint her green because he was a green investor. And so she said, well, make me green, and gave him paints. She smashed a TV with the Twitch TV guys. Said TV's a whole new thing because it was called Justin TV.
Right.
She did some hilarious and fun and exciting things. And I agree. There was nothing like that show anywhere.
What happened?
She grew up and out of it and became a venture capitalist, and she is backing only women's innovations. And that has worked out very well. It's called Halogen Ventures. And she, I think she's making great money on female entrepreneurs.
That's awesome.
That is really great. So she's taken a niche and done great things with it. She's also really good in the media. I mean, she's out there. You see Jesse, you Google Jesse Draper, she's everywhere.
Well, I loved watching her inaugural shows, she had such a great personality, and the whole Valley girl kind of persona versus, let's be intellectually honest, sometimes her guests were a little dry. So there was a nice juxtaposition between her Valley girl persona and the dry, kind of very sterile, dude sitting there. And so
It was fun. She'd pick them up in a little golf cart and drive them around to her garage and it was fun. And it was a pink golf cart. It was hilarious. The whole thing was hilarious.
That's a perfect segue to my next question. Your father, obviously we're talking about lineage here with Jesse Draper, yourself, but let's go on to your father. Is one of the pioneers of venture capital in Silicon Valley, still alive today. He does a great job at describing the ins and outs of venture capital in his companies and helping promote the industry in a book called The Startup Game, which I also purchased a while back. Knowing him and watching him execute his vision for venture startups, what character and personality traits do you think that you pulled from your father that makes you the Tim Draper that we see today?
Well, if you read Dad's book, The Startup Game, you get this feeling of optimism. He is the most optimistic person on the planet. I'd love to be that optimistic. I am pretty optimistic, but there is no one more optimistic than my father. And when you read that book, everything in that book is positive. Everything.
True.
It is when I'm down, I pick up that book and I go, oh yeah, everything's good. It's great. Everything's great because, Dad wrote this book and it's just a gift. I think he's created a real gift, and he had a gift. He still has a gift for optimism. It's fun. He's 92 now, and he is still on our show, Meet the Drapers, where we interview entrepreneurs, and then the viewers can invest in the entrepreneurs with us. He's still very active, does amazing things through this DRK Foundation. My grandfather also had that amazing optimism, and he did a lot of interesting things, one of which was he was the first Silicon Valley venture capitalist. Dad was a real pioneer, really drove the venture capital industry here in the Silicon Valley, and so it's nice to come from that lineage. It's what I grew up knowing. It's been second nature to me, and it's funny, when I had all these partners, there were these some fundamental things where I was thinking, well, hey guys, why don't you get this? But it's because I grew up in the business. Right. So all my kids, and they have all, 3 of them are venture capitalists and one's a entrepreneur. So I think we're passing it right on through.
Absolutely. What would you say would be the strongest personality trait that you garnered or received from your father? Might not be optimism, since you might be a little bit more balanced, I suppose. I recently read a tweet that you weren't too happy about the religions or the religion stuff that's going on in India. So you're not too optimistic about that. But what would you say would be the strongest personality trait that you pulled from your father?
Yeah, I probably should have phrased that better. But it is this India comment that I made. It is little windows like that we see from the outside as investors, and we say, that's not good for an open and free market society. We look for those things where a leader creates as much of a free market society as they can, and then we will go in there and invest. We invested a lot into China when it was under Deng Xiaoping, and things were moving very well and very open and much more free market. And then it clamped down, and we pulled back. We were Europe was very stagnant for many, many years, and we stayed out of Europe, and now Europe's starting to see little glimmers of hope, and we're moving more into Europe. India has been, for me, very difficult because it's gone up and down and up and down, and the little pieces of information I see don't show the whole picture, and so I'm not getting like a clear view that it's going to be a great place for the free market or it's going to be a horrible place for the free market. I just don't know. Other traits I've gotten from my family, I love people. I think that helps. My grandfather said to my father said to me, I passed it on to my kids, the idea that it doesn't matter really who's buying and who's selling. It's the personal relationship that matters. And it's helped me feel better when I go out and sell. It's helped me feel better when I'm buying and realizing that we're just all people, managing through this life, and the buy and the sell actually just make both of our lives better. Like if I sell you something or you sell me something and we agree, presumably if it works the way we think, it's going to be better for both of us. And that's true for the whole world. And I think that giving me a purist capitalist who I think has been great. That has made for a great life. It has encouraged me to try things that I might not otherwise have tried. It's encouraged me to be willing to fail and fail again until I succeed. At Draper University, one of the pledge lines is, I will fail and fail again until I succeed. Yeah,
I love it.
Have a pledge. Starts with, I will promote freedom at all costs. But fail and fail again until I succeed turns out to be the one that all the students remember the most years later. I think the idea of being willing to fail and pick yourself back up and go again, that is really powerful, because life will throw you 100 different things, and you'll get weird with people, and you'll get weird. Things will go weird in your head. The idea that you can just keep going and keep trying and failing again, and then every once in a while succeeding, that makes a big difference.
Did you know that there's even more value than just audio or video? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at VC Hunting, and make sure to sign up for the VC Hunting newsletter, where you'll be able to get weekly news on venture capital, startups, founder stories, and the occasional wisdom extracted from Peter's brain. Go to vchunting.com to sign up. And now back to the episode.
Totally worth it. Speaking of failures, a perfect segue into my next question. On Twitter, September 7th, 2013, so we're going back again, you tweeted, Theranos launched. Awesome. Just what medicine needs. So here's the question. Tell us, what do you think was the collective lesson from Theranos and all of the debacle that was?
Well, I think entrepreneurs, when they create a kind of an okay business, nobody seems to care. But if they create something that's extraordinary and fundamental to an industry, they've got to be willing to fight right back. When they start getting attacked, which they will. If you create something as big as Uber or Theranos at that time, or Facebook, you should be ready, because you're going to mess with other people's livelihoods. Facebook messed with the media business. I mean, the media is hurting because Facebook is taking over the media business.
That's right.
It's a big part of it. So media is coming after them. When Tesla came out, boy, the car companies, they came after them. And you've got to be willing to just fight back. As an entrepreneur, you got to have the attitude, like when they hit you, you hit back, and you say why it's still better. You say, hey, this is hurting the taxi business, but yeah, Uber is just better, cheaper, faster, and a better way to get around. Taxis, even if they're you know, they've been, I forget, they've been bonded or whatever. I don't know what taxi drivers, what's the difference between a taxi driver and an Uber driver, but I know some people are both.
Mm.
But all of these different industries, if you create something that really changes people's livelihoods, they are going to come after you. And if they come after you with an organized plan, you can really be, that can take you down.
It sounds like you really need to be willing to fight. Now, you brought up Elon Musk and Tesla, and so it just rose from my gut here, so you have to excuse me. I don't know if the trucking industry is fighting his new truck. So here's my question. What do you think about Elon Musk's new truck and the styling, and what do you think was kind of the game plan behind his model, his mental models there?
So I don't know that much about the truck itself, but I do know that the industry starts when there's a new entrant like that. They start by just poo-pooing it. Oh, this is nothing. And I mean, think about Bitcoin. The banks started by saying, "Oh, this is nothing."
That's for sure.
And then it was like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know, be careful. You know, oh, you ignore it, push, and then they start pushing it down. And then they lock arms and they say, no bank is going to allow anybody to use a credit card to buy Bitcoin. And then it was like, oh my God, this thing is, you know, really rocking our world. They're taking our 2.5% to 4% that we take every time you swipe your credit card. All of a sudden, hey, wait, this is fundamental to us. And then they get even more aggressive. Well, that same thing will probably happen with the trucking industry. You know, hey, trucks are just going to be better when they're electric. But I think, and then there's acceptance. It's a little like going through the
right,
you know, 7 stages of grief.
7 stages of grief
is when the banks go, okay, I'm going to break rank. I'm going to accept Bitcoin. It's going to be a part of everybody's overall, a bigger and bigger and bigger part of everybody's overall currency. You know, I'm going to break rank because, you know, otherwise these other, I mean, I got to beat the other banks ultimately. Yep. And that's the way they're going to do it. And same thing with trucks or cars or you name it. So many different things.
So it sounds like Elon Musk really is just falling into the, hey, here's the newest idea, get lots and lots and lots of flack. But as long as we know Elon Musk will continue to persevere, he'll probably end up changing the trucking market, which is one of those novel ideas considering the cheese block style of his truck. Me being a car guy, I will say I was a little miffed by that design.
See the car behind you there.
Oh, that's a race car.
Yeah.
So I was a little miffed by that.
Here's a question. Can that race car beat me in my Tesla? 0 to 60 in 3.2. Can that beat my Tesla?
Yes, it's 2.8. But
oh wow,
it's built for speed.
That's a rocket engine on the back of you.
Well, can I ask you a personal question? If you have a 36 inch waist or less, I could actually take you on a drive. Do you think you could fit?
No, I don't. I'm nowhere near that.
Oh no, Tim! I hope I'm not embarrassed.
6'4". If I had a 30-inch waist, I'd be like
36 inch waist.
Oh, 36. Oh, I'm closer to that. I'm 38.
Maybe we should see if we can find some way to get you in my race car someday, Tim. That would be really epic. Let's move on.
Where are you based?
I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
So if you're ever,
next time I'm in Georgia.
Hey, next time you're in Georgia, I will pick you up in this race car at Atlanta.
So I'll lose a little weight, go to Georgia. I can get in your car. Another incentive for me to lose a little weight.
I love it. Well, let's move on to our last question. We were just talking about Bitcoin. Obviously, you're a huge Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain enthusiast. I was a big fan of you purchasing all that Bitcoin from the U.S. Marshals auction. I actually did a crypto news bit in my other channel about that. So that was really cool, where you bought the seized Bitcoins from Silk Road. And so here's a generalized question. We're now moving into 2020 to 2030. I've been in cryptocurrency since 2011. I saw the pundits talk about 2020 to 2022 being the adoption period, or sometimes it was 2020 to 2025. I heard news about that in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, the height of 17, even in the doldrums of 18 and 19 of the crypto environment. So now that we're in 2020, is adoption going to be hitting us this decade, Tim? What do you say?
Oh, this decade, of course. But look, Bitcoin has brought people together. It has made it so people can go cross-border. They can pay for things cross-border. The economy can grow globally. It has opened up that as an option. Well, Bitcoin's not perfect yet. It's still got a few little things that have to be worked out. But once those are worked out, there is no way anybody will want to use fiat currency. And I actually think it's no more than 2 or 3 years out. So my prediction was Bitcoin at 250K by 2022 or 2023, beginning of 2023. And the reason is that gives all of these new developments that are going to make it so that the merchants can easily accept Bitcoin. I mean, they're going to want to accept Bitcoin because then they don't lose 2.5% to 4% every time you swipe your credit card. And, shoppers aren't going to want to waste 2.5% to 4%
For sure.
swipe their credit card either. So I think all that engineering is being done, and some of it's been done. I think things like OpenNode and Lightning Network are allowing people to have much more transactions in a shorter period of time. I think this is still in the transition period. Usually every industry goes through this sort of hype thing where it goes way up, and then it drops down because people go, wait, hey, I can't buy everything I want on the internet yet. And then it takes off, and it's much, much bigger than anybody ever imagined. That's what happened with the internet, and that's what's going to happen with Bitcoin and a lot of these other cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. All that, and you put AI together with it, it's going to transform everything from insurance to real estate to healthcare to government. All of these, the biggest industries in the world, are going to be transformed. This is going to be the most exciting time to be a venture capitalist.
Ooh, well, with a Bitcoin prediction of 250K by 2022, 2023, I hope you won't be eating anything like John McAfee. Hey,
I've done that. I've eaten a hat. I ate a hat.
You did?
I did. There was a company that my partner he was backing more than I was, and I said, I was excited about it. We both invested in it, and then they came back and they said, we lost our main customer, but we think this is good. And I said, oh boy, and they came back 2 weeks later or something. And I thought, God, just after we wrote the check. And I said, if anything comes of this thing, I'll eat my hat. So the company was bought for $170 million or something. And we had this big party. I brought a baseball hat and I took a big bite out of it.
Wow. Well, there you go. Do you have any pictures of that? That would be great. That would be a great thing to have.
It was years ago.
A great memento. Well, Tim Draper, thanks so much. Final question before we let you go. On December 6, 2019, you just posted a tweet, very simple. It said, #Bitcoin in space. Tell me, what do you know that we don't?
Isn't that cool? Well, think about it. Bitcoin it permeates all the borders. It's ethereal. It can be spread anywhere, and there are people working on government services in space, because you can provide government services without any of these land-based governments telling you what to do, and that's pretty interesting. And I think the land-based governments have to recognize that they, instead of getting heavy-handed, as many of them are, they should start saying, hey, this is this is interesting. And if we get in front of this early, we can be the big winner of the next, 4 decades. And I think governments have to realize that a lot of what they do now is in virtual space. A lot of insurance, medical insurance, and
I see. I understand where you're going.
you get that. All that stuff can be done out there, and so a government that has no overhead, no people, it can just be a bunch of satellites shooting around information. That can be much cheaper, more effective, and actually fairer than any government that is sort of tied to a bunch of bureaucracy and people who are kind of struggling to live in the old world.
It's a really interesting way of categorizing land-based governments versus space-based governments. That's a new category for me to think about. But I
hope that there are multiple. I don't want one space-based government to dominate the whole thing. I want multiple, so they all have to compete for us. I like the competition. They all compete, then they're all accountable. They all have to provide good service for low cost. So good government service for low taxes. That's important. And that's how governments are going to win in the next decades.
That's really powerful because I watched a TED Talk from October 17, 2013, where you brought that, you were talking to the United Nations and you were talking about how competitive governance and governments should compete for people. And this was back in 13. So you're still a big proponent of governments competing for the population. That's really fun.
And now they have tools.
Yeah.
Now they have the blockchain and Bitcoin and smart contracts and artificial intelligence. And the ones who use them to the best of their advantage are going to win. I mean, the ones who use them, for the best of their customer, their constituents, they're going to be winners. I don't think the control-based governments that are using them just to control their people are going to win long term. I think that's a losing strategy.
Well, for everyone out there, all the founders, operators, entrepreneurs, and venture capitalists who watch this, guys, I hope you're taking notes. If you're taking any notes, I would say that if Tim Draper is betting on it when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, might be a good bet for you as well. Tim Draper, thanks so much for joining the show. I appreciate it very much. This was a blessing and a life-giving conversation. See you again later.
Terrific. Thanks so much for having me on the show. That was great.
True startup story time. Guys, as a founder, I'm often asked, what are my go-to tools and technology that I use as I begin a startup? Well, that's easy. One of them is Dropbox. Dropbox is the easiest way to ensure that all your files and documents are synced on all devices, whether it be mobile, your local desktop, or remote. We want to thank Dropbox for supporting vchunting.com, and make sure to get your 30-day trial free at dropbox.com/business. Man, I hit the stop recording way too soon, guys. Right after we had finished the interview, Tim Draper and I'd stopped recording, Tim said that I was more Valley Girl than CNBC in my interview style, and I was remiss, man. I was remiss. That would have been so worth clipping, having Tim Draper call me a Valley Girl on video. Oh, man, what a great conversation. I will say, and I will just be 100% transparent with my audience because that authenticity matters to me. I was starstruck. Okay, I was starstruck in the beginning of this interview. And the reason is I've been following Tim Draper for years, decades. I have his books. I have his father's book. And it was just, I was a little tongue-tied in the beginning, but I got over it real quick. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I was starstruck. I know that Tim is prolific when it comes to sharing his knowledge with content producers, whether they're nobodies like me or they're big wigs over at CNBC. But I just really appreciated him taking the time to share some of his thoughts and be able to answer some of these kind of wacky questions. You know what I really liked? I really liked his answer around the evil twin, right? According to Wikipedia, he's the most successful venture capitalist on the planet. And if he had an evil twin, what would he do? But he made a really interesting point, is that it seems like the evil, the bad guys, at least in the comic books, are the ones that are moving the needle forward, right? Dr. Octopus with his exoskeleton and using robotics to enhance himself. He talked about Lizard Man, who's all about genetics and using genetics to heal, right, to heal the body. And he makes a good point. It's an interesting critique, these comic books, right? It's an interesting critique on the world by these comic book authors, in that the progress, the technological progress that should be made in the real world is seen as, or at least embodied in, the bad guys in the comic books. Whereas the heroes, now that under this lens and context, thanks to Tim, now I have a new context in which to look at comic books. The heroes are the ones that are actually not doing anything. They're just reacting to the bad guys changing the planet, or doing something, or using science to exploit some people group, or using science to move the needle in some way, some new technological advancement that could harm humanity, right? It's often the bad guys who are the innovators, the entrepreneurs, and the founders of new ideas and technological advancement. But it's the good guys who just sit and hang out in the what's it called, the danger room, practicing fighting bad guys when they're actually not inventing a whole lot at all. It's really intriguing. It's a very thoughtful idea from Tim Draper. I also enjoyed. You guys should also, by the way, check out Jessie Draper. You can Google her. She used to have this show back in the day, obviously back from September 1st, 2009. She had an interesting show where she did something similar to this. It was a lot, there's a lot more production value than obviously what you're seeing here, but she really had a lot of fun interviewing founders, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and individuals who move the needle in technology. She had a really fun way of communicating with them, even though she was the Valley Girl persona. And again, sometimes these, let's be honest, old white dudes were a little bland, a little dry, a little stale, but man, she made it fun. She certainly made it fun. And I would go as far as to say, being a content producer myself, if she stuck with it, she'd be a rock star today. 10 years later, she's stuck with it. I mean, it's that grind, I know, but I'm sure she's doing quite well as a venture capitalist, just like her father, and just like her father's father, and just like her father's father's father. Guys, one thing that was interesting, though, when I asked him the question from September 7th, 2013 about Theranos launching, awesome, just what medicine needs, he didn't really give us an answer about what we learned. And it's probably because his reputation and his brand is more valuable than mine, and so dodging that question probably was a good idea. But I'm not gonna say that he dodged the question. I think he went into this whole idea of whenever someone tries to upset the incumbent, right? Whenever someone has a world-changing idea, like Facebook against the media, or Uber against taxis and transportation, right? They're going to have to fight. I think what Elizabeth did with Theranos, she had to fight, but she fought the wrong fight. And I think not that I know all the insides and outsides of what happened with Theranos, but I've read the book and I've watched the videos and watched the documentaries. I think so what happened is that in many ways there's just a lot of hubris. There's a lot of hubris in the venture capital world. And I think that needs to be not squashed, but it needs to be tempered. It needs to be tempered. So what did we learn from Theranos? Don't trust a guy or a gal in a turtleneck? I don't know if that's the right answer. Obviously, Tim Draper is a big proponent of Bitcoin and blockchain. When I used to have my old cryptocurrency company and my old venture-funded company in the cryptocurrency world, I spent a lot of time doing news articles like this and reporting on what Tim Draper is doing in the cryptocurrency world. He's one of those guys that is obviously seen something that you and I might not have seen. He sees the diamond in the rough. He sees the opportunity where you and I might not see the opportunity. Hashtag Bitcoin in space. Not just Bitcoin up there, but Bitcoin all around. Ephemeral is, I think, the word that he used here. And I can completely resonate. I understand that idea. Bitcoin and blockchain has unlocked something powerful. It's unlocked the ability of self-sovereignty, the ability for people to transact however they please. Now, it's not 100% mature yet. It's not at a usable level at scale. However, just like Tim said, work is being done in the Bitcoin and blockchain space in major ways. And so he said 2022 to 2023, Bitcoin to 250K. Well, he's not going to bust a John McAfee and eating his bow for $1 million per Bitcoin. But as you saw, he did eat a hat. So clearly he's willing to play the game and willing to eat things if he's wrong. Finally, I just want to say I really appreciate it. I wrote this down. Fail again until I succeed. I think that's a powerful, encouraging line. Fail, I'm willing. Be willing to fail until you succeed. Be willing to go through it, to work hard for it, to do it. I think Tim Draper is a perfect example of someone who has succeeded in many ways, but has also failed, but never given up. Thanks so much for this opportunity, guys, to host Tim Draper on this show. I'm loving doing this. I hope you guys are having a lot of fun too. And if you want to find more information on this interview and obviously all the things about Tim Draper, you can find your way over to vchunting.com/Tim Draper. Guys, this is cool. See you in the next one.